In this video, I want to talk to you about how to get your event space.
This video is brought to you by Appy Pie Academy,
which is called a venue space, for free. And often event space can be the most expensive thing about putting on your whole event series, and that represents a lot of risk, and I do not want you to have risk. So I'm going to go over a number of ways for how you can get free event space up until your gigantic event size. When I first ran my events, of course, I had an easier time because I was able to do events outside, so I didn't have to worry about it. In most event cases, that's not an option. So what you want to do is find some company that will give you a couple of hours access to their office. Usually it's better if these companies are in the same subject matter as your event is, and usually it's good if they're on the small size, so they don't have a big HR department to get a lot of permissions from. Probably the decision maker is the CEO, and he can just say sure. He can also be present during the event, and you can introduce him and introduce the company during the event as a sponsor, so that his company gets this exposure to these attendees in person. He can try to sell them, so it's good for them. They get exposure. It's good for you. You get this free sponsor and free venue space. And if you try to get a sponsor who will give you money, that's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get a sponsor who will just give you a free office space, maybe in an off-peak time or in the evening when the employees are not there anyway. That is much easier. So they don't need to pay, but they'll still be a sponsor. They'll still get promoted by you during the event. They'll still get mentioned. They'll still have a chance to sell to the attendees. And all they have to do is just give the conference room or office room, and one person of the company has to be present there to just volunteer some time just to open the door and stuff like that. Other easy ideas are running a small event. This is like 5 to 10 to at maximum 15 people, coffee shop or bar or restaurant. Usually these businesses, especially if you can bring people during off-peak hours, like between 5 and 6 p.m., where not many people are there, or other off-peak hours, they're really happy because those spaces are usually really empty, and you don't have to pay to go there because the assumption is that your attendees will buy some things. And so coffee shops, bars, and restaurants are super happy to accommodate small to small event meetings because that's just extra revenue for them. And some of your attendees might become regulars at those places, so that's an extra incentive for them. Now, how do you find these sponsors? Really, you just reach out oftentimes to these small companies who are in your space, in your area, and you can ask for friends. If you have friends who are in a similar niche, you might ask them, and if they work for some companies or if they know anyone, that would make for a little bit of a warmer lead, and you'll have an easier time getting that venue, getting that sponsor. And if you don't have friends like that, just reach out to companies. If you are resourceful, it will save you a lot of money. If you're not resourceful, you can just pay for the venue, but obviously you probably don't want to pay for the venue, so you just want to be resourceful and do a little bit of outreach. Some people will say no, but really all you need is just one company to say yes, and that would be a fantastic long-term sponsor. Now, what happens when the event gets bigger? Well, guess what? When you need a bigger space, you can get bigger sponsors. For example, I know of an event organizer who has grown his events to events that, like, it's workshops and lectures, but like 200 people come to a certain event per evening, and it's like 200 people. And guess what? He does it at like Microsoft offices or Google offices. Usually these kinds of companies have really big spaces. That particular organizer's audience is technology audience, and those kinds of companies, they like to sponsor small business events and things like that because they have small business products to sell. So it's a good match, and he's still able to get, even at that size, free event space, especially after you've become friendly and have a business relationship with the sponsor. It's easier to keep that going, and they'll just give you bigger space as you need it. So as your event grows, just grow with the sponsors or get different sponsors, because different bigger companies have bigger spaces. And really the only time you really have to pay is when you have a conference size event. You need a multi-day, multi-room kind of situation. You do need some kind of hotel accommodation. and then you need to pay. But even then, you can get extremely cheap hotel space if you go to hotels that are like 20 minutes or 10 minutes off downtown or major business areas, because it just as you get more suburban, hotels just become cheaper. Now you probably don't want to go that far out, but for most people that's not a challenge. For most people, it's really getting the event to be 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 people. That's the challenge. And at those levels, you can always get free event space.